Ulysses S. Grant. His birth name was actually Hiram Ulysses Grant, and he was born April 27, 1822, to a Methodist family in Ohio. He did not like his initials because they spelled hug, so he rearranged them to UHG, Ulysses Hiram Grant. When he was nominated at the age of 17 for a position at West Point, Congressman Thomas Hammer mistakenly wrote the H as an S, thinking it stood for Grant's mother's maiden name, Simpson. With the name U.S. Grant, he attended West Point, where he excelled in horsemanship, setting an equestrian high jump record that lasted for nearly 25 years. After graduation in 1843, Grant was stationed at Jefferson Barracks on the banks of the Mississippi River, just south of St. Louis, Missouri. While visiting the family of a West Point classmate, he fell in love with a classmate's sister, Julia Dent, and they secretly engaged. An earlier graduate, Robert E. Lee, went to West Point. 14 years later, Ulysses S. Grant went to West Point. In 1846, Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant were both sent to fight in the Mexican-American War. They participated together in General Winfield Scott's march from the coastal city of Veracruz inland to Mexico City. In 1852, Captain Ulysses S. Grant, along with the 4th Infantry, were ordered to go to California. They were ordered to go to San Francisco. To get there, they had to travel down to the Isthmus of Panama. They had to get off the boat and go across by land during the rainy season. Their clothes were drenched. They were marching through this tropical jungle. 1849, a cholera epidemic had come from India, and about 150,000 Americans died of cholera. And so this epidemic breaks out in the jungle, kills 150 of the 400 traveling with Grant. So in the drenching rains, Grant organizes a field hospital, and he personally cares for the ill. During this ordeal of crossing the isthmus, he says the horrors of the road in the rainy season are beyond description. After arriving in California, Grant is accused by his senior officer of intemperance in drinking. He was either going to be kicked out or he could resign. So he was pressured to resign from the military in 1854. Grant returned to Missouri to be with his wife, Julia, and he attempted farming but was unsuccessful. Well, the Civil War began. Grant responded to the call for volunteers, and they basically forget the past and they bring him in. He's quickly promoted to brigadier general. And in February of 1862, Grant captures Fort Henry and Fort Donelson. These are Confederate forts. When the Confederate commander asked for terms of surrender, Grant demanded unconditional surrender. This resulted in his nickname, Unconditional Surrender Grant, which happened to be his initials. Grant won the Battle of Shiloh, which was the costliest battle to that date, with 23,000 casualties. Pennsylvania politician Alexander McClure tried to persuade Lincoln into removing Grant because so many had died. Lincoln remained silent for what seemed a very long time. He then gathered himself up in his chair and said, "I can't spare this man. He fights." In March of 1865, Ulysses S. Grant captured Petersburg and Richmond, Virginia. Shortly after, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered. Lee gave his sword to Grant, who gave it back. Grant then stated, "The war is over. The rebels are again our countrymen." 5 days later, Lincoln invited Grant and his wife to accompany them to Ford's Theater, but Grant declined, having plans to travel to Philadelphia. That night, Lincoln was shot by John Wilkes Booth. At Lincoln's funeral, Grant wept, saying, "He was incontestably the greatest man I have ever known." In 1868, Grant was elected the 18th U.S. president. He was considered a radical Republican as he worked to end the Democrat policies of racial discrimination in the South. Grant fought the Democrat-affiliated Ku Klux Klan. They actually passed a Ku Klux Klan Act and started the Department of Justice to stop them. Grant supported the 15th Amendment, guaranteeing that freed slaves have the right to vote. Grant ended the Democrat policy of Indian removal. So instead, Grant came up with the reservation policy. He appointed the first Native American to serve as Commissioner of Indian Affairs, Eli S. Parker of the Seneca tribe. Hope you've enjoyed this program. God bless you as we study where we came from so that we can know where the Lord wants us to go.